cats aren't the type to jump up on tables, or else we'd be like talking and be like,
Oh, wait,
boo!
start.
Oh, hi.
It's okay. We can
We're
use
live.
this as a test of the audio.
We're
Hi,
live.
Boo.
Okay.
Just keep running. You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, they don't jump up on tables.
No.
I'm just waiting for Sabrina to sit down and think. So we have like an 11-second,
Yep.
11-second delay, 10-second delay. You said you wanted me to throw this in Facebook real quick, the link?
Yeah, if you could just toss the link up to our Facebook group or Facebook page, whichever, and then that way anybody who's waiting on that can have the link.
See if I can.
If not, don't worry about it. Honestly, they know to go to the
You
YouTube
can.
page.
All right, just
Sabrina's
making sure
gone
the
again.
audio for this is working. Checking through.
So
Boom.
Adam, we're
Okay.
gonna rely on you to kind of, as the host, to kind of direct us and keep the thing flowing
Yeah, that's fine.
and announce when we're starting and stuff.
Oh, the fact he's using 2 computers.
I have to.
You can use my Facebook.
No, I can't.
It's fine.
'Cause
It's
I'm gonna
fine.
go here. Check this out.
Just let Adam do his thing. He's the MC.
This makes him feel more futuristic.
Like multiple screens in his little
More-
lair.
More computers. Not even just one. Not even...
So if anybody is here,
That is not your channel.
It's the Mirror World News. There you go.
weird.
They're Mirror World
We're
Publishing.
publishing. That would be why they are live right now. Live stream and click on it. You're gonna have a weird back feed for a second.
Okay.
Are we streaming on somebody else's
Mirror
channel?
World Publishing. Mirror World Publishing.
So we're just getting things ready. There's a few technical glitches. This is our first time streaming onto YouTube. So if anybody is here, just please bear with us while we get everything set up, and we will be with you shortly.
Almost ready to start the show.
Remember, if you do have any questions for us, you can always leave them, I believe, in the comments, and our host Adam will be forwarding those on to us. So we'll get started shortly.
Whatever, it's a link.
Click on it, make sure it works.
I'm having technical difficulties here, but that's okay. It works. Okay. So
All right,
the link
awesome.
is on your Facebook page.
Excellent.
Can you do me a favor?
What?
I tried to do it.
2 separate screens. I really want to have somebody see what we're doing right now. This is a little chaotic.
Just ignore the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention.
Logging out of here.
I told them I'd post a link so if anyone were interested.
There, done. All right,
Okay.
Perfect.
that's done.
I need the link.
This is done. I didn't post it on my Facebook like a champion, but I posted it on yours,
Oh,
Real World,
well,
so
that's
that's
fine.
good.
That's good.
Type in Mirror World. Oh, it's right there. Oh, wait. Type in your name, please. You did it on yours, right?
I did it on Mirror World Publishing.
Why is it not showing up?
I don't know.
Alright, cool. Mirror World Publishing, please. Oh, it's right there. They are live. Look at that live stream.
Woo, live.
Are you watching us?
Well, yeah,
Where are we?
kind of.
Okay.
They are live. Look at that live stream.
Live.
Are you watching us?
Well, yeah. You just hit Control V.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, because you have new Facebook, I have old Facebook. That's why mine didn't work, and yours will.
Oh, okay.
Mirror World Publishing has new Facebook, I have old Facebook. We
I
are
don't.
incompatible.
I don't understand the difference.
Please, right? Because
What am I writing?
Don't worry about it.
When the link, no, we're putting the link in Mirror World because this didn't show up. So because I think because the way Facebook is right now, stuff's not
Yeah.
doing it.
It's not crossing over. You get it, Boo.
Blam.
There we go. Now
You show
it's
that
on
cat for who's
Facebook.
boss.
Boom. All right, we are live, folks.
Okay, good.
Are we alive now, or have we been live the whole time?
You've been live
We
the
have
whole
been
time.
alive the whole time.
All right. Well, that's great.
All right, so we're going to get going.
I'm leaving it now. I'm
Thank
walking
you.
back to my seat.
All right. So we have a couple people in the
Hello.
in the live stream right now watching.
Hello.
Again, just so everyone knows, sorry about the technical difficulties there. We got everything all settled through here. But we are starting our live stream today, November the 1st, 2020, the day submissions go live.
Spooky!
The animated voice that you are hearing is Adam. I will be the host, also the host of Mirror World News. We have in the center of our panel here Justine. She is the publisher. We have Robert. He is an editor. And we have Sabrina. She is an assistant. And then somewhere in cyberspace, we have Sarah Jane on a pogo stick somewhere. I don't know where, but she's out there.
That makes up the entirety of our acquisitions team, if you're wondering. So that's all the people that are going to be reading through the submissions this November and December.
The submissions that you are all going to be submitting, I hope. And this will show you kind of what you need to learn and what you need to know about everything. So before we get started, I have an announcement here. It's that what we're going to be doing is talking today specifically about submissions. Submissions, how to submit to a publishing house, what publishing house is like, those kind of questions. But we want questions from the audience as well. So if you guys have any questions that you can think about publishing, what it takes to be published, any advice, any examples, anything like that, just throw them in the chat. I am reading the chat right now, and we'll go through. Now, before we begin, we have a couple of messages already. To
Yay!
Robert and Sabrina and Justine is here, and we all rock. That's from Sharon.
Aw, thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
Sharon's one of our authors. She's the author of the Last Timekeepers series, if you want to check her out. Also, if you have any questions for us about Mirror World Publishing in specific, we're willing to take those too.
We miss you, Sharon.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to begin with something just a little bit off the beaten path here. It's a question for all of you, but it's a question mostly about Mirror World Publishing itself.
Okay.
So what is Mirror World Publishing? If someone is looking to publish a book, Mirror World Publishing, who are you?
So we are a small-sized, traditional style Canadian press. We specifically focus on escapism fiction, which we define as other places, other times, other versions of reality. Usually that means science fiction and fantasy, but not always. It also includes romance, historical, adventure, speculative fiction, kind of anything under that umbrella. And we publish books in ebook and in paperback for all age categories, from children's picture books all the way to adult erotica.
It's not really a narrow focus. It's really more just anything that kind of takes you away from your regular everyday life. Just something that brings you to a different place in one way or another, physically or mentally.
Yeah, we're also looking for things that are very engaging and creative, things that are maybe a little outside the norm or outside the box, and things that really draw the reader in and kind of transport them somewhere else. So world building is really big.
Awesome. So we're going to go into some questions more specifically for you guys first before we really get into the nitty-gritty of submissions and everything. But just in general, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what your personal favorite genres of books or even any kind of fiction really is. So we're going to start at the far side of the panel with Sabrina. And so Sabrina, what kind is your personal favorite genre?
Fantasy.
Done and done.
Next.
Anything added to fantasy is fine. Is that it? Just fantasy in general?
Fantasy. I mean, I like fantasy, sci-fi. Sometimes historical ones are okay. I don't know what George Orwell's books fall under.
Science fiction dystopia.
Science fiction dystopia.
Dystopia
Yeah,
type stuff.
yeah, you know, like Animal Farm and all that. Like,
Yeah.
one of those ones. Biographies can be interesting. Like the
So
person's
your
interesting.
favorite is
It's
fantasy.
yeah. Well, you want more out of me, so I'm just gonna go down the line of slowly
In
go
this
down the
order.
line. Comic books. I do like comic books,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what those would fall under. Fantasy as well.
Well,
I guess.
it's
Escapism.
Comic books, it depends what kind of genre the story is. Like, there's all sorts of comics. I'm not big on comics myself, but there's a lot of different types of them. So
I read just about anything. It's good, I'll read it. But fantasy's at my top.
All right, let's throw it over to you, Justine.
I tend to prefer cross-genre things, so things that kind of blend two different genres together or more. But specifically, my favorite genre to read is the same as the one that I write right now, which is fantasy romance. And I also enjoy science fiction, but more like soft sci-fi. Robert?
Much like Sabrina, I would probably, if I had to pick one, I would probably say fantasy. I was definitely that little kid in the library just grabbing everything that had either a guy with a sword or a dragon on the front of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get some winners, sometimes
Not so
sometimes
much.
not so much. But that's definitely what would always draw my eye in to begin with. Other than fantasy, I kind of like weird stuff. Sometimes that ends up being science fiction-y. Sometimes that's contemporary magical realism things. I try to read pretty broadly, but usually just always fiction.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. All right, so we have a couple more people coming in and making comments. First of all, I'd like everyone to say hello to Triple Take Productions.
Oh,
Hello, Triple Take Productions.
And we also have Linda Allison as well, who is here as well. And she is posting questions. So I will
Yay!
we're going to go through the questions we have, and then we have a Q&A that we're going to be doing
you
as
can
well.
just mix and match if you
Yeah.
want to bounce back and forth between them.
Just throw it at you.
Just throw it at
Yeah.
us.
Yeah,
Well,
by all
come on
means.
in, roll them.
If people
roll
are
them.
here and engage.
All right, cool. Well, we'll do that. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, there's another question. All right, so here's what we're going to do then. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of submissions. So the very first question here we have is from Linda. I'm just going to do the first one first, and I'll bounce between them. So which person do I address my submission to?
So I will answer that question and then I'll give it away to Rob here. Robert is our acquisitions editor, so the best person to address your submission to is Robert. However, you can address it if you want to, specifically to myself or to Sarah Jane or to Sabrina. Any of us are fine, or you can just say Dear Mirrorworld Publishing. We're not that picky, but Robert is, I guess, technically in charge of the department.
Yeah, no. Generally speaking, we've got the group of us all work on submissions together, so it's not. Don't worry too much about who specifically to address it to, but just Dear Mirrorworld Publishing team is more than fine.
I like that one.
Yeah. We're all going to look at it. Each submission will go through at least two members of the team have to look at it before we give a response. So.
All right. So next question here, specifically for looking into your query. They state that if they've read Mirror World Publishing books before, right, and that's their reason for submitting Mirror World Publishing books, would you say, do you say the books that you have read in the past that are comparables and show how they're similar or different to your own manuscript when you submit?
That would give it a personalized touch. I definitely wouldn't turn that down. You can also just say, I'm a fan of Mirror World, or this is how I discovered you, and then we at least know that you know who. It's not just like a blank submission, like you know who you're talking to. I would say yes.
Excellent, excellent. And just a quick jump into picture books here, because they say that you guys do publish picture books. You have a couple great ones. One of them's coming out actually, it just recently came out.
Yeah, October 1st.
Yeah, Libby.
I've been trying to say it.
Libby the...
Lobivia Jajoyan.
There you go.
I've been trying to learn
First
how to
try.
say it. Anyway, so the question is that it says most publishers require text only, but you guys require the illustrations in yours. So do you read children's stories before the author hires an illustrator, or would it be better for them to send you the story first before illustrations, or after, or...
Okay, I'll take that one. We definitely need to see at least the sample art, and whether that's done by the final artist or not doesn't really matter. But you do have to have an idea in mind of what the style of the art is going to be, because that does factor into our decision. If you do have the art completed, send us a couple of sample pictures. It's the same as sending us sample chapters. So we want, in children's book case, the full text plus 2 or 3 or at least 1 sample image.
Excellent. Now, if all of the images are not complete yet, and they're still looking to get an illustrator, like as you said, just an example.
Yeah.
But if they have something in mind, then it would be a better idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
or they have some copies or samples.
Yeah.
For a children's picture book, we need to get an idea of what it's going to look like. Does it have to be 100% picture perfect complete in that moment? No, but we want to have an idea of what it's going to look like as a whole piece.
Yeah, and if you don't have an artist picked out yet, and you don't have anybody who can make a sample picture for you, try to look up concept images. So is something like this, and just go to YouTube or Google and just find something in the style that you're looking at.
Excellent. So this question is going to be for all of you, because all of your opinions are all kind of together whenever you look through submissions as a team. So what do each one of you look for in a submission? Like, what's one of the things you guys look at specifically in a submission? I'm going to start down at Rob. So, Rob.
Much like what I'm looking for when I pick up any book off the shelf to read it, the first thing I want to see is an opening that really draws me in. You hear this kind of advice a lot, being really engaging, whether either your first line or your first paragraph or your first page. Like, it's not, there's not really a hard and fast rule here, but what I want is that when I've picked up your submission, like as if I was picking it up off the shelf of the library or in a bookstore, I want you to get me hooked so that I want to keep reading more. It doesn't have to be like a super great first line. It could be the whole first scene, just something that gives me questions and makes me want to keep turning the pages. Physically or digitally. I think you get what I'm talking about. Like, the idea is that you want to start strong to get me interested, so I want to keep going.
Yeah. In addition to that, so that applies to me as well, but I'm looking for something to intrigue me about your query or your opening paragraph or scene or whatever. So I need to be intrigued or interested in some way, and that could even just be your concept. So in your query letter, if you can make it really clear what it is about your story that is interesting or intriguing or makes like that hook that makes it interesting, even if it's just like a neat concept, like, oh, this world is different because of this, something like that will get me to look more closely at your submission.
So you kind of covered most of it. If you have bored me in your opening letters, I will have a fight to read the rest of your book. Because what you write to catch us in should be roughly the same you write in your book. So I'm looking for something that's interesting to read. If it's got a slow burn, as long as that slow burn is interesting in the beginning of the book, I'm good for that. If it's right off the hop, I'm good for that. So... Mm-hmm. It's just gotta be interesting. If it's boring or I have given up after the first like sentence, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and an easy way of well, not an easy way, but a good way of doing that is to kind of drop your questions. So as I'm reading it, I go, oh, well, why is that, or who is that, or like little mysteries, little questions, little clues are going to make me read the next sentence and the next and keep going.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a huge explosive sequence to start your. You're not necessarily trying to write an action thriller here. It's something, even just something like soft and quiet that makes me question. Well, what are you talking about here? If you can give an example of something about how your world works kind of oddly differently than the normal world does. Then I'll say, well, wait, what do you mean they all walk on the ceiling? Or something something to that effect. But you just say that without really dwelling on it. It's something that makes me go, well, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, but
then I want to see what happens on the next page.
The flip side of that, though, don't confuse your reader.
Well, no.
Don't make them go, what is even happening here?
No, it's something, it's a hard balance to draw sometimes. Making something, giving out information without overly explaining something. So it's hard to say. But I want you to make me want to know more.
Yes.
Excellent.
Just because I hope that answered that.
Oh yeah. So Triple Take Productions. It says how a challenging title. So, and then Uncle Jed actually has a question for us. He says, how many novels or short stories do you generally select every year?
Our goal is to select between, I would say, 3 to 5. Usually it ends up being 5 or 6. We have, I've kind of mentioned it a few times on the blog, we have this tradition of always taking one more than we anticipated we were going to take each year. We're just suckers for punishment, I guess.
So speaking of being suckers for punishment here, I would like you guys to just give a quick explanation. Some people who are submitting for the first time, they may not know this term. What is a slush pile?
Oh, Sabrina?
I've always wondered that myself. I just accepted the term you used. I'll be honest, I don't know. I'm sorry.
So I don't know what the origins of it are. It might be a little bit derogatory, actually, just because it's referring to all of the piles of submissions that until you find kind of the diamond in the rough, that's just the pile of them. So yeah, that's called slush. So that's where it comes from. So I don't know if there's a better way to say it or a better term we could use, but essentially the slush pile is the pile of unread submissions.
I guess I know what I'm looking up later.
All right,
Maybe something about like sifting through them to get
Yeah.
to another level where they get read more deeply. I would expect.
Yeah. Usually cold queries are like a pile of unread submissions.
You could always change it to panning pile. Panning for gold.
Could be anything.
We can look for it.
Old timey prospector.
All right, so we have a question from Sharon coming in. It says, "What do you expect from your authors as far as marketing and promotion? I think first-time authors need to know that part of the business before they even, like." She says, "That's her question. I'm not going to add words." There you go.
Who wants to take this one? Or
You go ahead.
all right. I'm trying.
You had
here.
a lot more marketing.
So our goal, because we are a small press and we don't have the largest budget in the world, our goal is really to partner with our authors. And that means we expect that the work on the marketing end is going to be split 50-50, the same way as our royalties are split 50-50. The idea is you write the book, we provide the services to publish it, and then from there on we split the duties, so that the money that comes in is then split equally between us. So that's kind of the theory behind it. So what that means is that we expect you to have an author photo, an author website, try to have a social media platform, try to be active in promoting your own work and finding opportunities to do so. Especially if you live somewhere other than where our publishing company is located, you need to create your own base of operations from that spot. So approaching your own local stores, your own local media, just doing engagements, signings, be as active as you can. The more active you are, the better your book is going to do. We're doing all that stuff on our end as well, so the combined effort should result in more traction for your book.
Excellent. So Uncle Jed has another question for us. He says, "How does copyright work for the author?"
Okay. So we handle that, setting that up for you, and it is stated in our contract very clearly. The contract itself is a term of 3 years minimum. So we expect exclusive rights for sale of that book in ebook, paperback, and possible audiobook form for 3 years. And the copyright is registered for as long as the contract exists. So our contract also has a clause in it that says once it's over in 3 years, it automatically renews. I think it's for a period of 6 months or something like that. Anyway, it automatically renews unless you send us a letter in writing that says, "I would like to cancel the contract and revert the rights back to the author." The intellectual property always belongs to the author. If they want to write other stories in that universe or they want to talk about those characters, we don't have a problem with that. And if there is something that you have a question about during that period, or if you have a situation come up that you do have a reason why you want the rights to revert to you, we are always open to discussion and to altering the contract. It just has to be done in writing. So you'll find us very flexible, essentially. We've had authors that have gotten agent deals or publishing offers from other companies that are larger than us while their contract was still active. And all they did was come to us and say, listen, I've got this other deal. I kind of want to take it up. And we've canceled the contract for them and removed their books from the shelf and wish them the best. So, we will work with you. But it's a 3-year term, if that answers the question. Sorry. Long-winded there.
I thought that answered it really well, actually.
Okay.
Answered both my questions.
I didn't know that, now I do.
Yeah, it's actually the first clause in our contract. So,
So, for example, if someone wanted, for example, they were working with you, they had a book published. I'm just going to pick one that I'm seeing just in front of me on the background here. The biggest one and the most colorful one I can see that's right in front of me here is, I'm just going to use Coffee Monster, for example.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's actually the one that came to us. It wasn't the Coffee Monster, but that author came to us.
Oh, fitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say, for example, Coffee Monster, they got a deal to make a Saturday morning cartoon out of it.
I'll tell you the actual story. The Coffee Monster author was offered, basically he had contacts with a kind of big time agent, I think out of New York or Toronto, one of the two. And they wanted to see if they could take that book and bring it to a larger publishing house, like one of the big 5. So we wrote up a contract that said if he got picked up by that agent, we would revert the rights back to him and no worries. And we had him, sent that to him in advance so he could do that. He ended up staying with us, but that's, not part of the story, I guess.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to hop back over to the process of submissions, because that's why we're all here today.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the process that you guys go through to tackle a submission? So what do you do when submissions come in? What happens?
Submissions come in. We catalog them. We look to see whether all of our guidelines have been followed, whether all the information that we need to even begin the process is there. All the details are on the website. I'm sure we can get the link, maybe. No, okay,
I can
maybe
put it in the details after this.
we can get the link and the details afterwards. But on our website, there's a list of all the various things we need. Like we need to know, obviously, a little bit of information about you. Right? We need to know your word count, your genre, your target market. Just kind of a brief overview of where your book or your stories would even be positioned to begin with. So that's usually step one, is just making sure whether or not we've got all the information we need to even decide to be able to even start the process.
And if we don't, by the way, if you missed, say, the word count or the genre, our automatic thing to do is to send you a response that says, we are missing this. Please consider resubmitting with all of the information.
Because those are your bare minimum.
Yeah,
right?
so...
Yes. They can add more, but
yeah,
those are your
just to be
bare
really
minimum.
clear, word count, genre, target market, that's basically your age group, so is it middle grade, adult, general audience, whatever, and is your sample chapters and your synopsis there. Those things. If you don't have all of those things, you'll get an instant reply back that says you are missing this, this, and this. Please consider resubmitting with the following details, because we can't review your submission without those 5 things.
And when it comes to your things like your sample chapters and your synopsis, we've got a lot of really good blog posts and some of the videos on the YouTube channel that talk about the process of submitting. What kind of things should be in that query letter? What kind of things should be in your synopsis? Synopsis is one that comes up a lot. We want to see the whole, like a brief summary of the whole story of what you're writing, including the ending. Because a big part of looking at a submission before we even get to, if it's something that we're interested in, we'll ask for the whole manuscript later. But a big part of the beginning of the process is just kind of seeing how well you can tell a whole complete story. We've all read a book or seen a movie that was really, really great, and then the ending was just ruined everything. So sometimes we'll come across things like this, but this is important for us to be able to tell what you've done in the whole before we even really get started. And then your sample chapters, make sure that those are from the beginning of your story. I've seen a couple of times people send things in saying this I've sent you chapters 1, 10, and 15. Those ones kind of show you, they're more representative of where the story goes or what the overall plot is. That information is helpful, but we need to know where the story starts. That's what we want to see first.
Yeah. So back to their original question, though, the process.
I get a little sidetracked sometimes.
The process that we go through is the email will come in, we'll open it up, and we'll make sure that all those details are there. I log those into our system, and I will basically make sure that our due date is assigned, and we know when we need to get back to you by, and who's going to be looking at the submission. They're all sitting in a list and a queue, so we try to get to them in order that they were submitted. And so a acquisitions editor or one of us will open it up, and everybody has a different order that they attack things in, whether they look at the query, the synopsis, or the sample chapters first. That's on an individual basis, but they're going to look at those 3 things, and they're going to leave their thoughts and comments on the task. We basically use Asana, if you've ever heard of it. It's like a task scheduling program. So we'll leave our thoughts and comments. At least 2 people will look at each submission before a decision is made, and then we have guidelines that we follow as to what response we're going to give you, but then those notes, summary of that feedback, will be included with your response, whatever it is, so you do get feedback from us regardless, and we'll tell you why we've made that decision, and what you can do next. So whether that's ways to improve it, or maybe the genre's just not for us, and we'll suggest maybe other avenues you could look at for where to go next with your story, and we'll send that off to you. So I think that covers everything.
Sounds about covers it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can go through and say, how we each tackle it individually, because that's going to be a different answer.
That's gonna be a fun answer.
Sabrina, if you want to tell them.
I was about to say I don't think it's going to be that much different, but maybe Sabrina has a different.
No, I think it will
go
be.
right
Usually I just go right to the chapters that are submitted. I skip the query. I skip the synopsis.
To be
for the most
fair,
part.
she reads them afterwards, right? You
Yes.
do look at them, don't you? Okay, I don't want to know.
Sometimes I do. I figure if they've reached that point, then they've been looked over by you, because you or Rob have already gone
Yes,
through them. So I figured
it's
that they've gotten good enough to the point where I can read them. So I actually don't read a lot of the synopsises because I don't want to have it spoiled for me per se. But if I read and I like the 3 chapters, I will then go and read the
To
synopsis.
see how
But
the rest
I
of the story
rarely read the query letters, mainly
Alright.
because a lot of them just annoy me. I'll be brutally honest.
Okay, to be fair, I guess maybe there are different approaches because I similar to Sabrina, I will get to the synopsis, but I try not to do that until after I've read through the sample of the writing, because I've had cases come up where I've read something in the synopsis and then we read the sample and then we have a discussion about it afterwards, and I say, oh, well, the story's about this, or these characters relate to each other in this way, and somebody says, no, they don't, and I say, well, yes, they do, of course it is, it's in there, but it was in the synopsis and not in the samples. And
Yeah,
sometimes
you don't
that
want it
makes
to taint
things-
your perspective.
Sometimes it makes things confusing, but yes, also not knowing the ending lets me see how you can evaluate the opening of the story just on
Yes.
its own merits.
Yeah.
So maybe there are different methods. Maybe I was wrong.
So I will read the query letter first. I
Sorry.
feel no, but that's fine. I'm on the one who logs them, generally speaking, so I have to look for the genre and the target market and all that stuff. So I will read the query letter first, because I feel that the query letter gives me a little sample of your personality and a little sample of how you write, and I think that actually matters. It just tells me who I'm dealing with and how they approach it and everything. So there's a lot you can actually get from a query letter. And then I will go right to the sample chapters, like Rob said. You want to see if the book can stand on its own and draw you in without knowing any additional details. And then I usually glance at the synopsis one way or the other, even if I don't read all that far into the sample or don't feel that the sample's for us. I'll usually glance at the synopsis. But if you read the 3 chapters, like Sabrina said, and you get to the end and you want to know more, read the synopsis to see if the story pans out.
Excellent.
I will admit there's been times I've requested manuscripts without reading the synopsis.
That's
I'll just say that right now. I've
Just
done it
kinda
many
grabs
times.
you, just
Yeah,
pulls
there's
you
just
right
been
in.
times
Yeah.
where, like, Unreachable Skies, I'm like, I need the rest of it right now.
Yeah, a shout out to Unreachable Skies by Karen
Yeah,
McCready.
sorry, one of my favorite books that's in their collection.
and that really speaks to the strength of those sample chapters.
So we have another question from the audience here, from Linda again. Says, how many of the 3 to 5 or 6 books are adult, young adult, picture books? I think she's looking for like a ratio.
Yeah, it's roughly an equal mix. We try to make sure that we have each year at least something for each age category if we can. It doesn't always pan out that way, but we do try to keep them roughly equal so we have something for everybody, because we can attend a lot of markets and try to sell those books in person, and we want to make sure that anybody who walks by, we can have an area of the table to point them to.
That's kind of one of my favorite things to do is, like, we have everything from children's books all the way up to adult books. And
Yeah.
you can, like, go around the whole table.
We try to arrange them on our table when we sell them in age them up.
People are usually surprised, too, when they're like, oh, you have this age group? It's like, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we have another question in here from Uncle Jed.
Okay.
He's asking mostly for what word counts do you prefer? And I know that's his question, but I want you guys to break it down.
Yes.
If you have a different genres or types or books.
Definitely.
Or whatever.
So we do have a minimum and a maximum listed on our website, and the minimum is 25,000 words, I want to say, and the maximum has just been lowered to 125. The idea is that we can't really feasibly print anything shorter than that, because we want the book to be at least around 80, I think it's 80 pages when it comes out in print, and that's because our book size is 6x9, so 80 pages, kind of the minimum where it has a decent spine that we can get the writing on.
6x9 inches for those
Yes,
people.
6x9 inches.
in-
The maximum word count, same idea, because as your pages increase, your print cost increases. So and your shipping cost too, because the heavier the book is. So it gets to be unwieldy and unreasonable over about I think it's 500 pages, 450, something like that.
Somewhere in
So
there.
we try to keep it within those two things. Now, that being said, each genre has its own expectation as far as word count goes. I have a handy list of that expectation on our blog. You can type in word count in the search bar, it'll tell you. But essentially, fantasy books are usually on the longer end, around 100,000 words, 90 to 110. Whereas most speculative, for example, would be more around 75 to 85, in that range. So we're not sticklers. Tell your story, tell it, how long it needs to be. But just keep in mind that a novella is usually around 50,000 words. Middle grade's going to be, a little shorter than that.
I was going to say too. Sometimes it depends on
the age category.
Your target market. Like, you don't see a lot of
sizes.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of like stuff for younger readers.
Middle
grade that's very, very long.
Yeah. So this would be like not the max, but I think this is 115 or 120,000 words roughly, and this one is more like 75,000. So the thickness does matter. It does actually come into account. If your book is super long, not only is that more work that we're taking on, it's also a higher cost for us to produce it. So that's going to factor into our brains when we're looking at your submission, thinking, can we take the risk on a book that's going to cost this much time and effort and money to produce? So unfortunately, that does come into the equation.
Excellent. So while we wait for some more viewer questions, we're gonna spill a little bit of tea here.
Ooh,
so
please don't.
So I'm gonna put a limit on this, but please describe, and I'm gonna start probably. I'm gonna start with Justine. I'm gonna start in the middle this time. Please describe your biggest pet peeves when it comes to submissions. The time of submissions.
So many.
What is one of the biggest things that sticks out where you just say, "Oh, I wish they wouldn't do this"? What's the one that sticks?
Yeah, okay. Well, umbrella term here. Follow the guidelines. Adam has heard this a million times, and he has said it a million times. It's probably Adam's biggest pet peeve. Please follow the guidelines. Yeah, so they're all clearly laid out. I have put a lot of work into I revise them every single year to tighten up little holes, because I notice people find things that make errors and mistakes that could be easily avoided. So I go in there and I re-edit the guidelines to be like, don't do this, do this. So yeah, just follow them. They're there. It makes it easy for you. Within that, do not send us the wrong genre, because that's an instant no. I mean, I can't publish something that isn't in our niche. So if it's not, if it's nonfiction, I got one today that was nonfiction. I'm like, I can't. It has nothing to do with what we do, and it's an instant no. So why waste your time? Why waste our time? Just don't do it. Okay, my rant is over. Go ahead.
Rob, why don't you go first? I'm trying to pick out which one I'm going to go with.
There's a time limit on this. So.
Is there? We have all the time in the world.
This whole video could be about pet peeves, but go ahead.
Do you mean like just pet peeves about the submissions process, or what in a submission?
When a submission comes in, what makes you go, "Oh, I wish they didn't do it this way," or "Oh, why is it like this?" or "Why didn't they do this?" or one of those questions that pops up. Like, what's something that just makes you go, "Ugh."
It's hard to come up with a good second option following on the heels of just follow the guidelines, because honestly, that one takes up the majority of the cases where something comes in and we've got a general problem with it. Either it's completely outside the genres that we deal with, or somebody has just put a proposal for a story in there without actually. Maybe that's a good one. Is making sure that what you're submitting to us is a complete piece of work. I think part of this comes from the difference between companies that publish fiction and nonfiction. A lot of times when you're dealing with nonfiction, whether it be memoirs, self-help books, other types of nonfiction,
don't send those.
First of all, don't send those to us. I'm sure they're wonderful. They're just not really what we deal with. But in a lot of cases, those types of books are written by submitting or soliciting a proposal from an author. Saying, I want you to write this type of book for us, or I have written half of this type of a story. Can I arrange with you to fund the rest of it? When you're bringing something to us, you want it to be as complete and ready to go as possible. Don't worry, like every published book, yours will go through the whole process. You need to be edited. You need to have beta readers. You need to go through the whole every step of the way. We will help you, but part of your job as somebody who's doing submissions and submitting to publishing houses is to make sure that what you're sending out is as ready as you can make it. No book is ever going to be perfect or finished.
We are looking, to be clear, we are looking for potential. So we're not looking for polished pieces. We're trying to find out what intrigues us or what is a good potential for this. If we can help you get it ready, could this be great? But that being said, on your end, you got to do your part to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's not to be discouraging. Like, obviously, if there's something that we think is going to be great, we're more than happy to help you get there. But I'm just saying that your job is to get it out there with as much effort as you can to start.
Yeah, like I was reading a book just recently, and like it's a major publishing company, major house, been through multiple rewrites, and the word definitely was defiantly. Right,
Yeah,
so
it
it's
happens.
like
It happens.
they happen, and you don't have to edit it to the nth degree.
No.
And put it through 18, different editors, whatever. No, just get it as complete as you can.
Tell a good, interesting, engaging story. That's the most important thing.
We've got editing. We got people who handle editing. We have people who handle copy editing. We can get something more polished. I'd rather read something that's really intriguing and really draws me in and needs some work than something that doesn't have a comma out of place but bores me to tears.
Yeah.
All right, Sabrina, go ahead.
Take it
Okay,
away.
repeat the question so I make sure I answer it correctly.
It's your biggest pet peeve.
Pet peeve.
Submissions.
All of them. As she said, read the guidelines. Nothing. This is also why I don't read the query letters, because nothing irritates me more than when people don't read the guidelines and then send the things in. If you can't be bothered to read it, I can't be bothered to read your works. It's as plain as that. It's an instant rejection for me. Like, I have zero interest in it. Grandeur, I don't mind people putting in, like, I've written for such and such magazines, everything else, but when you start being pompous and, like, really that annoying prideful about it, I have zero interest in reading your stuff, because you're just doing it because it's a thing to do.
I think that's an interesting point that we kind of danced around a little bit, is that we are also not judging, but we are also getting a sense of who you are by reading your query letter. And if you're somebody we feel that we don't want to work with, even if your story was amazing, we're not going to take it.
If you're a toxic person, I have zero interest.
We're not going to take it, because this is a working relationship, and it is a partnership, and we're going to work with you for at least the next 3 years. We don't want to be stuck with somebody that's not, going to have that give and take, who doesn't really appreciate the process either. So yeah, we've had to reject things or cancel contracts based on, you don't really jive with this person at all. It's like a job interview.
Yeah.
It's your first. The query letter is your first introduction to us. Like, I've seen cases where I've really enjoyed the writing of the book, but the query letter was really unprofessional, or it was really incomplete, and then we just, like Justine said, like we know whether or not we would want to work with this person. I've had lots of cases where the queries were great, lots of great back and forth. We offered feedback. I would love to work with these people, but maybe just the book doesn't fit with us, or maybe it's just not ready for publication. So having your own personality and your own interest in there really makes a good impression on us. But like I said, it's still a professional inquiry at this point. So you got to put the effort in at the start.
It's also especially awkward when you're selling their books and then just like, oh, so how's the author? And you're like, oh, they're fine.
That's never happened.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if I have to sit there and like blow lies out my mouth, that's not something I do. I don't want to lie about the author or the book. It's like, they're an amazing person. They're great. They're fantastic. The book is fantastic. You can see it in the writing.
We have been so fortunate. All the people we work with are absolutely wonderful. I love all of our authors. We consider ourselves kind of a little family just because we are a small business. So we treat our authors like they're part of the group. And I can stand behind, and that's part of the process too, of choosing a book. I can stand behind any one of our stories and say they're fantastic, and they are.
Well, speaking of number of stories that you have in your company, one of your authors actually has asked a question. So Sharon has asked, how many submissions do you get each year, roughly?
What's the number you're at right now?
We had 16 as of noon this morning.
Noon today, 16.
Yeah.
So far.
So far.
But last year around the end of December,
Yeah.
How many had you had?
I don't count. I don't keep count.
It's
Yeah.
a lot.
But it's in the hundreds. I would say maybe like 250 at least. That would be a low number. But yeah, I don't actually keep count. I know that we have breached, for the last couple years that we've been using Asana, we have breached 1,000 at the end of last year. So total. So yeah,
Total, so
hundreds
each year.
each
And
year.
that's-
And we're only open submissions for about a month and a half.
And some of those are
Yeah.
resubs too.
Oh, yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
work on it and then they'll resubmit it the next
Yes.
year.
Some
And
of
those
them
get
are-
logged under the same. We just keep that account open.
Yeah, some of them are resubmissions.
Yeah.
And to be fair, those hundreds and hundreds of numbers, like some percentage of those are going to be the things that we've been talking about.
Oh yeah,
things that-
those don't always get logged. If I see something that's just an instant, like you didn't give me the information or this genre is nonfiction, I don't even log them. I just send them back with the immediate response.
It's not to say that we're going through hundreds and hundreds of full manuscripts every year, but
No.
we get a lot of things coming in. And many of them are worth digging into further because they'll fit with the types of stories that we like to tell and the things that we're looking for that year. Not that we tend to have like a focus each year, but sometimes there's certain things that we will give more preference to.
Yeah,
But
we also get
every year's a little bit different.
we get pitches in person at events too. Those don't get logged.
Also true.
Also, it ramps up. So, say 3 years ago, we would only have had maybe 200, and then the following year we would be like 250, 300, and then this year, who knows, right? So each year, there's always more as we grow as a company. We get more and more submissions.
The short answer is a lot.
A lot, yeah, a lot. Which is why the team this year is 4 people.
Yes, thank you, Sarah Jane.
Yes.
I am interested to see how this year's going to be, whether this year's going to be any different, because so many people have maybe whether they've felt up to it or not. I think a lot more people have had time to write this year, so we'll see whether that makes a difference or not.
Just as a quick side note, I do see storm clouds coming in, so if we get disconnected, our power went out.
Or if the lighting changes drastically.
Yes.
Yeah, the
I just
lighting
happened to
changes,
glance
can't
to my
change.
right and saw blackness.
All right, so when it comes to the numbers, I know you guys have. How many books do you have now that are published now?
Upwards of 35. I don't have an exact number for you.
So a lot.
Yeah.
35,
A lot.
35-ish.
Ish.
How long has Mirror World been in business for?
We opened January 2014.
2014. Oh,
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah.
Excellent. So while we wait for some more questions from the audience,
We have roughly 20 authors around that number. I'd have to count, but it's around there.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it completely opposite to our pet peeve question, and I'm going to ask a totally opposite spectrum question and ask, do you have any funny submission-related stories? So any stories from books that you remember that have made you laugh, or any
So many.
like, that has happened. So I'm going to start with Sabrina.
Any submissions that made me laugh?
Do you want
Any
to tell the
funny
most
related
recent
stories?
story?
No, that one made me angry and
Okay.
laugh.
But
That
it's
was
funny.
That was a dual one.
It's funny.
That came from a pet peeve of "Don't be a pompous blowhard." I don't really
Tell that story. Tell it. This was just a week ago, so submissions hadn't even opened yet, and we got a very interesting letter.
It started off with "Hey ho," so right there off the bat, you have already caught my attention that you are not really serious about this, and then it went into stating you actually read the whole thing.
Something along the lines of I don't care about following your guidelines. I will do whatever the bleep I want. And I will have a bestseller with or without you, and then proceeded to give us his submission.
Yeah, and then sent a response when we told him you have fun with that.
So I said, I just gave a standard response because I honestly did not want to get into it with this person, but I have a promise that I have to respond to every single query that comes in. So I just said, if you're not willing to follow our guidelines, and unfortunately, we're not willing to work with you, if you'd like to look at our guidelines, here they are, here's a link. He responded back with more expletives and more, don't want to listen to you. The only reason I sent this to you is because my editor is forcing me to, and you don't have as many Twitter followers as my soon-to-be ex-wife. So I don't know.
So what we're saying is submissions 2020 started with a bang.
Yeah, either the person's real or they're just one dedicated troll.
I really want to hope they're a dedicated troll.
That's what got me going about the whole don't send in your like, oh, I'm so and so and I have all these accolades and stuff. Like, be proud of your stuff, but don't be pompous about
Also,
it.
don't be mean.
Like, list your accomplishments.
Don't kick the door in and say, I don't want to work with you, but I'm here asking to work with you.
Right,
There's
why?
There's no point in that kind of an interaction.
Why
But it's kind of like I said before. We've had a bunch of, even several of the authors that we work with. Right from the query letter, you can tell that they've got a lot of personality, and that they'd be good, fun people to work with, and that has made the difference before in whether or not we've taken a book. But there's lots of times where I can read a query letter and say, I don't know that I like this person's attitude, even just from the start.
Yeah.
Like I said before, you're making a first impression. Make it a good one.
We're talking about funny stories.
Yes, funny stories.
Funny stories.
So
Again, that made me angry. It also made us really laugh a lot.
Okay, do laugh. Fine.
this one is on behalf of Sarah Jane. So Sarah Jane and I used to meet at Cora's restaurant every once in a while for coffee and whatever. And she always used to love hearing my submission stories. So I would come prepared with, my latest tales of ridiculousness from the slush pile. Anyway, one that really sticks out to me it's actually just a title. It's a title of a book that someone submitted to us, and I'm sorry if whoever wrote this is listening to me. I don't think they are, but this was years back. Someone decided to submit a story, and the name of the book was The Missionary Position.
I remember that.
Missionary
This
Position.
is coming back to me.
It's not a romance. It's not an erotica. It's like an adventure story set somewhere. And that one just sticks in my head. I can't forget it. So
choose your titles wisely.
yeah, think about connotation in your titles. That's important.
The only things that come back to me, and I can't remember specific examples right off the top of my head, are just really, really unique and bizarre premises for books.
Yes.
Sometimes they're really funny to me. Sometimes I just have to look at something and I say, it takes me a whole page of your synopsis or your query or the email that if it takes you a whole page to even pitch the idea to me, I think it's maybe too complicated. And I'm gonna remember it forever and have a good laugh about it, but I don't think it's going to be the best way for us to move forward together in a working relationship. So again, we try to offer feedback to everybody as no matter what they've sent into us, and sometimes that you get something a little bit more specific back, just saying I don't know if this is going to be for us, but maybe you can try contacting another publishing house, or sometimes we have people that we refer people to. So every situation is a little different, but those are the ones that make me laugh. But I can't remember a specific one right off the top of my head because they're usually very complicated.
A good story, one that had a positive ending. One of our authors, David McLean, who wrote The Time Traveler's Resort Museum, his query letter legitimately made us laugh. Like we were just blown away by it. One of the best query letters, I think, like on top 5 that we've ever gotten. And he included fake quotes from fake review quotes, basically, from various celebrities like J.K. Rowling and I don't even remember, Shakespeare probably. Jane Austen. Yeah, and fake little review quotes of, the last time I sat down with David, we had tea and discussed this. Like, he wrote these things at the bottom of this letter, and they actually made it onto the back of the book. So they are there for any of you to go and read them. So look up the Time Traveler's Resort Museum. But his personality shone through that query letter so well that we ended up, I love the book too, but we ended up picking that up. So... happy story.
So whenever you quote at the end of something, guaranteed to have no cobras. All right,
so it's a comedy too, so making us laugh was a bonus.
Yes, it was a comedy.
To
All right, so we have a couple of questions here coming in. We have another one from Sharon. It says, in your opinions, what's the...
Go on.
Sorry, you're laughing. In your opinions, what's the best social media platform an author should be on? There's so many nowadays, and it sure gets overwhelming. Thank you for your answers. Can I chime in really quickly with my
please
personal
do.
opinion?
Please do.
All of them.
Yeah,
that's
a good
what
answer.
I was going to say was all of them.
I know it's overwhelming, Sharon. It really is. But you should at least try to find a space on as many as you can. But don't get sucked into the vortex of social media,
also, to an addendum to that, though, spreading yourself too thin is a thing.
Find your space.
Find your space. If you are better at Instagram because you're a person who likes to take pictures and stuff, then and make sure you're on that one and maybe one or two others. Focus.
Like for example, if you have Twitter and
Yeah.
you have Facebook and you have Instagram and you have some other stuff, and you find that you're getting the most response from people
That too.
on say Facebook, then that should be where more of your attention is.
Yeah.
It's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Like make sure to put your attention and your focus where you're going to get the most response. Don't ignore the other ones, but
Yeah, I will also say Facebook used to be the place to be. It was the most popular place where most people were. That's no longer the case. It's a very it's much smaller audience there now than there used to be. So you do have to diversify and pick at least one or two others. I feel Twitter for books. I think Twitter is doing the best right now, and then followed by Facebook and Instagram, kind of tied. That's the way I see it, but it shifts. It constantly shifts.
I also think you can link, because I believe we did it before, me and Adam.
Yes.
You can link your Twitter and your Facebook together, so when you post on one,
Yes.
it automatically posts it to the other, which is always good if you can find ways to link them all in. So if you
Yeah.
post on one, it will
I'm
post
gonna.
on all of them.
there are YouTube videos all over the place of how to do that.
Yeah, I will also quickly plug bufferapp.com, because it has Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can set up your posts individually, or you can link them all together and have them on a schedule and figure it all out, and it's free.
Hootsuite is
Another version. Same kind of thing, yeah. So if you're not tech savvy and you don't know how to link your various accounts to each other, just go set up that one app and then let it do all your work for you.
It takes kind of some of that, some of the difficulty out of it.
Yeah, and then you can write up your tweets and things in advance. So you log in there and you set it up for the next 2 weeks or whatever it is, and then you don't have to come back again for another 2 weeks.
Just coming from like an online marketing standpoint as well. Like for example, just to use Instagram as an example, because it takes mostly for pictures from your phone and whatnot. I know some people say, well, what good is Instagram or Pinterest or whatever when I have a book? It's a book. I don't have illustrations or whatever. No, that is the case.
That's not what it's for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could take pictures of what your process is. You can
Sure.
get more of a...
Sharon does that.
Sharon does very
Yes,
well
exactly.
at that.
I've
Yeah,
seen a couple of
it's
pictures
more
actually
about
from you, Sharon.
it's more about engaging with your audience.
Exactly. Yes.
Letting them behind the curtain a little bit. So your process, Sharon does a great series called Your Author Life. So just stuff that you're doing on a day-to-day basis makes you more of a real person to people, and people who are more familiar with you are more likely to be interested in what you do.
There are reasons why authors' names are on the covers of books.
That's true.
Because they are curious about the author. There are many books that sell because people say, "Oh, I know this author."
Yeah.
Yoink, and they.
Or I like so and so. They're interesting to me, so I
Yeah.
want to see how they write, what they're interested in, or what their story is.
And that's another thing too, is that I might not particularly like the book a person is writing or they have out, but if I like the person, I will do everything I can to tell everybody about them and their books. Be like, oh, you gotta check out their books. They're an author. They're a great person. Blah blah blah. They ask me if I read the book. I'm like, it's not my thing, but the person's really good, so give it a chance. Maybe it's the genre you like. Like if it's something historical and I don't like it, you might like it.
Yeah, there's some media that I've also taken in that I may not like that one piece of media, but it's one thing that they're trying or they're doing, but I like their core stuff. Or sometimes I'm not necessarily one of their major fans for their core stuff, but I love their side projects. And you just really get to know the person through those, like you said, peek behind the curtain moments.
Yeah.
A lot of networking. One area that is kind of actually now becoming bigger because of the whole COVID situation is YouTube and Twitch and probably Facebook Live, but I don't know that very much, and the new Facebook is all squirrely right now. But Twitch is actually an odd place to go to see if you want to find other people to network with, to do collab streams for, say, talking about doing roundtables for authors, or even doing an open critique of a book, or even doing book clubs on there. If you don't mind being on video, you can also put up audio and just put a picture or something of your book or whatever on the background. So I'd say you could also hit up Twitch for it if you were interested in it. It's actually fairly easy to use, and there's lots of videos for it.
Yeah, and even if you just have a manuscript or you're just starting to write, you can still start getting a platform together. It's more about interacting with people, getting them to know you, let them in on the process. Like, oh, I'm writing my book. I'm this far along. It's about this. Give them updates. You can start now.
there's a lot of places you can do, and the best advice, like you just said, is to just start.
Yeah, do it.
Find a platform, even if it's just a simple message once every couple days,
and
it gets you going.
Newsletter is another one. Newsletters are big for books. If you have an audience, that way you've got that whole list at your fingertips, and you can update them when you need to. So that helps with sales.
All right, so I have another question here from Uncle Jed, and it says, "Is every book published as softcover and ebook, or do you have other options?"
Yeah, everyone is paperback, which is soft cover, the 6 inches by 9 inches. That's our paperback format, and then ebook as well. Kids' books only come out in paperback, and they are 8.5 by 8.5 inches. We do have one hardcover book, that's the Time Traveler's Resort and Museum, and that was just something that David McLean wanted to do because his book is illustrated, and our illustrated books, some of them are different sizes or hardcover as well. So we tried that out for him, and that was part of his contract.
Isn't the Bestiary one also hardcover?
Yeah, that's another art book.
Yeah, is that the same person?
That's his wife.
Oh,
She,
okay.
she does the art for both.
Yes.
It's absolutely beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, some hardcover books are just.
Yeah, so we have a couple.
It's got a nice.
It costs more though, doesn't it?
Yes, they do cost
Yeah.
quite a bit
They do,
more.
yeah.
It's more like if you have something that could be a special edition. Then
That's what it reminded me of when you showed me those books and I held
Yeah.
them in my
Yeah.
hand. I was like, "This is something special."
yeah,
And
it's
the art
it's
on
meant
the cover
more.
of that one is absolutely beautiful as well. Like,
Yeah.
where is it? It's
Yeah.
2 books to the left of Rob's head.
So that's out over there.
Or this, one of the two. I don't see what you see on the screen, so assume that
No, sorry, to the right of Rob's head.
this way. I did it right the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of our books are illustrated, and we do have a couple of art books. So those ones are done a bit differently.
Yeah. Now, there's one that I have on here as an art book as a side one. This is one that was unique. It was Windsor based.
Yes,
This was one called Windsor.
it's
Tour
called
de Sketch.
Tour de Sketch Windsor. So there's a local artist, Owen Swain, who was running. I'm assuming he doesn't do them right now because of COVID, but he was running sketch and cycle events. So he would arrange these events in advance and have a bunch of people meet him on bikes, or and then he would go all around to the different sites of Windsor and have them just sketch and cycle together. And what he had printouts that he could give to people, so if they wanted to just color instead, because not everybody is a sketch artist. And so I approached him, and we were kind of part of in the same crowd, but anyway, approached him and kind of said, "Have you ever thought about making a coloring book?" And we sat down and talked about it, and came up with this concept of all because Windsor has tons of landmarks. So he sketched beautiful renditions of each of Windsor's landmarks and put little anecdotes about them, and we turned it into an adult coloring book. So it's kind of like a Windsor-based art book / coloring book. So something really unique that's really only local to people who love Windsor.
But it's another example of a person finding a platform.
Yeah,
Using
finding a
unique-
platform, but it's also too that we like to look outside of our box, so we're not really limited. Sometimes we'll take on a
It's
special
'cause
project.
I was gonna say it's not like escapism per se.
It's
but
not
it
escape.
is.
Yeah, it's
No.
not escapism.
I used to color to escape.
Yeah.
That's why I said it is, but it isn't. As we look at it,
Yeah.
that's a really good book too.
It's not escapism, but it's something that we wanted to try, so we did. And as a small publisher, I think this is one of the questions too. As a small press, we can take risks. That book, I think it sold more copies than any other book that we
He was
produced.
always ordering boxes. Of
cases
book.
and cases and
Cycling
cases
around
of
and
books.
delivering them.
And each case had, I want to say, 78 books in it. Like, I'm not talking small cases. And he would be
Fair-sized
ordering
boxes.
them constantly. So
Yeah, people love games. We're like, oh, I can put this on my table for a piece, or they put it in the
Yeah.
office, or
yeah. Tourism Windsor wanted to buy a bunch of copies so that they could provide them at their tourism stations across the city. Yeah, it's been nuts.
I don't
So.
even know if people bought them to color them. I think bought them just to have.
Both. They
It's
would
a cool
buy
thing.
they would buy 2 copies and be like, I'm going to keep this one pristine and I'm going to color this one. So, nuts.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments about that one too when we were doing shows up in London and stuff and that. And people were like, "Oh, do you think he'd do stuff here?" I was like, "I don't know, but you always could."
Yeah.
All right, so we have some questions here from Sharon again. First of all, she has to say that she loves your Facebook Live bits, Justine.
Oh, thank you.
Keeps readers up to date on what's going on in the Mirror World biz. And just so you guys know what she's talking about, anybody who's new or just joining us now, Justine has been doing some snippets on the Mirror World Facebook. It was Facebook.
Facebook and Instagram. I've kind of
Facebook and
been
Instagram.
alternating between the two. But yeah, what I've basically been trying to do is just offer updates. Here's what we're working on. Here's the latest thing that came out. Here's the contest we're running. Just talking to people every once in a while, letting them know kind of where we're at. The blog is more specifically for big announcements or for publishing and writing advice. So I just wanted something that was a bit more, I guess,
Personal,
Yeah.
Yeah, quick.
informal.
Yeah, informal. Just pop on. Here's how our submissions are going, or Just a
here's
reminder,
some-
this is happening this week.
We've got a launch coming up next week.
Yeah.
Smaller production updates, things like that.
She also asks that she heard that you mentioned newsletters.
Yes.
So she says that she's looking into doing this, and so she's asking, is it worth an author's time to create a monthly or quarterly newsletter for their readers?
So it is a commitment. What I did is I decided against the monthly thing because I already do the blog and that's twice weekly. So I'm already writing long form articles. It didn't make any sense to also have to do the monthly and different information and stuff like that. So our newsletter specifically is just for whenever there's an announcement. So that's a launch, cover reveal, an event, or like submissions or a contest. And that's it. So you choose what suits your schedule and how much commitment and time and writing you want to put into that. But you don't have to do it monthly or quarterly or anything like that. I would do it whenever you have news. And some newsletters you sign up for because you want to read them every once in a while. There's a reason, to go back to it. And some people just want to stay informed. I think that's more common with books. They just want to stay informed with what the author's got going on. Anytime you have a sale, anytime you have a new book coming out, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Speaking of somebody who actually signs up for those kinds of things, monthly is probably too regular. Unless you absolutely have something interesting going on every single month, the quarterly is good. Two of them a year, or like Justine says, whenever you've got something to talk about with a project. Like there's a big time author that I get his newsletters, and he's cranking out at least one major book a year. I hear from him once or twice a year, and that's it. Just a quick update. Here's what's going on. Here's where we are with this project. Here's an exciting thing going on, or there's a re-release of something. Just whenever there's news, you don't have to be saying, "Oh, here we are, same place we were last month." Like, if nothing else, like Justine says, it's a lot of work to do that every month.
On the inverse,
that with a blog if you want it to be more.
yes, you can use a blog. Some people use a newsletter in place of a blog and have it more regular, and it's more like
another good idea.
Yeah, so it's more like a newspaper or something. Like it's got articles in it. Or I think it's Reagan McCauley, our children's author, does more regular posts, and there'll be interviews that she's done with other authors or stories from guest posts. Like she includes other content, so that's an option too.
Excellent. So keep those questions coming in the chat. We're going to be taking everything in. Triple Take Production says, "Yep, I do."
Yes, that's Reagan. By the way,
is that her?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was just like,
I'm like, that name sounds so familiar.
who is it? She's
Excellent.
incognito today.
All right, so I am going to switch and pick one of our questions here we have set up, but definitely put more questions in those chats. We'll definitely get them to them. So here's a question in relation to submissions again, circling back to it. So, what do you wish people would send you?
Okay,
What kind of things would you like to see? You can take a second while we play the Jeopardy music in your head. I can't play it.
I'm trying to find a way that it doesn't come off as someone.
I'll answer first because I have an answer.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so particularly I want interesting settings. I want different worlds, unique worlds. I don't want to see the same old medieval fantasy, for example, or paranormal. Like, if you do paranormal, don't make it, it's a werewolf story or a vampire story or a shifter story. I'd rather see something really unique. So the more interesting and unique it is, the better. For example, if you're doing fantasy, instead of medieval fantasy, why don't you try something more contemporary or modern? Or maybe they have electricity. Maybe they have like the steampunk's been done, so maybe avoid that. But just different settings with worlds that work in different ways, that sort of thing. Also different characters. Like things don't have to operate on the same rules that we know in our universe, and they don't have to be stuck in the medieval period, for example. So pick a different time period to emulate, pick a different country or different culture to emulate, or come up with something completely unique. That would be.
Ooh, I like to see one where either a guy and a guy, or a girl and a girl,
I was
or
gonna
a
say
girl and a
that too.
guy, or
Yeah.
whatever,
Break the
aren't
rules.
suddenly,
Yeah.
we're in the same book together, so we gotta totally shack up, because, that's
Oh,
how it's done,
God,
eh?
yeah.
Let's go do. It's like
Not every story needs a romance.
Don't force.
they can be
Don't force a romance.
friends. They can be best. They can be enemies or whatever else. It doesn't have to have this romance, because it's especially in YA books, and I understand that's how it's done. I get it. I really do. But at the same time, I would love to see a YA book where it's just a friendship. Like, I just read the one you guys just got me to read that I just finished.
Skyward.
Skyward.
Yeah.
Now, it might turn to a relationship later, but she hated the guy. He's like, he's a jerk face, blah, blah, blah. And then they kind of she started to understand him a little better, and they started becoming friends. I was like, I would love, in the next books, is also why I haven't wanted to read the other ones yet, if that friendship stayed. Because if all of a sudden it turns into a romance, just like, yeah, you can see that's where it was heading in the first one, but I was really hoping it wasn't, because it was a unique relationship that she didn't like him and he was authoritative, and then it turns out, no, he's just got this standard, and it's like,
Yeah.
I would love to see that not turn into a relationship, just because it would be so different.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong.
It's really about
wrong
breaking
bit.
tropes, doing something different, doing the unexpected.
I don't want to
in
see
anything,
the main person in the book who can't do anything all of a sudden is like the magical ninja that can do everything, and you know the meme I'm thinking of, Rob.
She loves two boys and she can't choose between them.
She's extremely clumsy, except all forms of combat.
Oh no, werewolf.
She's the chosen one.
Like, I get tropes are there for reasons, but it'd be nice to see if you're going to use one, try to present it in a more unique way of how it's coming around to it. Like, I know it's difficult because eventually everything's going to be done, but it's just, that's why I like to see something new or done differently that makes it seem new.
Break the mold a little bit.
Yeah, like this Night Sucks had vampires in it, except that it wasn't really about the vampires. It's about the kids who were going to school that did a vampire course, and
it's a comedy. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's actually a really great example, because I think just about anybody in publishing will tell you that vampires are, maybe they're coming back now.
Pardon the pun, vampires are dead.
Vampires are dead. I think we live in a post-vampire existence. But one of our authors pitched us a vampire novella that she had written that was it was basically like a teenage high school comedy about a world where vampires exist, but that information is so boring and so banal and so background that teenagers take a vampire education class in high school to get an easy grade.
Yeah, they treat it like sex ed, basically. They're not interested.
They just think, oh, I just show up, I write a paper, I get my A, I move on. This information, I'll never need this. So when vampires attack the town, it suddenly becomes relevant information. But it was just the sort of world that it lived in that blew us away. And that sort of ties into what I think my answer is going to be, is that the thing that I most want to see in a submission, and this becomes really important because I read so much fantasy and sci-fi and bizarre, weird, strange stories, is that I want something to, it sounds weird to say this, but I want it to make sense. I want it to have internal consistency. It doesn't have to be realistic, but it needs to make sense.
Yeah.
It was something I heard so many years ago. I don't remember whether they were talking about fantasy or sci-fi, but the way they kind of phrased it was, you get one thing that just doesn't make sense. Everybody in your story has magic powers. There are dragons. We all walk on the ceiling or whatever, for my previous example. But I want your story to make sense in and of itself. If you don't have, like,
you can only suspend your disbelief so far.
Yes, I'm perfectly happy to believe that everybody flies around and shoots lightning out of their knuckles or something, but there has to be a reason why that's happening, and then that you have to not contradict your own rules within the next 2 pages. Like, it's hard to kind of sum it up into a quick argument.
If you guys want an example of a really badly done version of that, I think it's the movie called Upside Down.
Upside Down, my favorite movie ever.
It established the opening sequence is to establish the rules of the universe, and then the whole movie proceeds to break every single one of them.
The one where they keep like flipping around.
There's like 2 worlds, and they're both like this, but they're like gravity point is in the middle.
It actually breaks its own rules in the middle of explaining them to you at the start of the movie.
So bad.
I can see
Beautiful visuals, though.
Yes. In some situations, I can see breaking the rules, but the breaking of the rule is explained.
Yes, no. This isn't
why that can be explained.
This is basically being inconsistent with their own rules that they have laid down as their groundwork.
Exactly. Like, for example, every time there is a red sky, none of our electricity works. But yet, the author forgets it or misplaces or whatever,
Oh,
and they
God.
have a big battle during a red sky. And
That's
someone
just
shoots a
plot
Tesla cannon.
holes.
It's
Yeah.
like, wait, I thought this happened.
But if
So-
that's done as an accident a handful of times, that's
But that
something
could be
that
caught.
gets caught in
Mhm.
the read through,
It's
right?
if
Yeah,
you
it's not.
ignore it, it's
Yeah.
not-
Do you think that telepathy in Maze Runner is a good example to use? It's something that just comes out of randomness, and you're just like, why, and then they get rid of it, and it's never used again. It's like,
There's plenty of arguments that can be made about like how whether or not absolutely every little small detail that you include in your story has to matter in some way, or whether some of it is set dressing, or whether some of it is red herrings. But
It just needs to make sense.
I want your story to make sense. If you
Yeah.
have something that's a large factor in your story or a major plot point, it should matter in the overall scheme of things. Sabrina and I harp on there's I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but there's a trilogy of YA novels called the Maze Runner series. I guess there's more of them now, but there's a major plot point that two characters have telepathy, the ability to speak to each other in their
one book.
minds. This comes up in the middle of the story. Their ability to have telepathy is removed later in the story, and I don't feel that it made any difference to the story. It could have
No.
easily been removed. That's a developmental edit problem.
me and Rob could probably do a whole live series of us going through books and just having a
What were we
heyday.
gonna do? The bookworm?
Angry
The
bookworm.
angry bookworm.
Yeah.
Something
I
like
have
that.
strong words about books,
We will get to that later
especially
on.
YA books.
We have a question.
Yes,
Oh,
Next
yeah,
question, please.
Yes.
Please
Go
get
for
us out
it.
of this quagmire. All right.
Not here to harp on specific books.
All right, so Uncle Jed, he says, do you encourage a series rather than a standalone novel?
No. We don't pick one over the other. This year, I would like to probably, if we can, find another series, specifically because most of our series have come to a conclusion now. We have a trilogy and then a series of 4 books that have ended, so I would be fine with picking up another series. However, standalone novels are just as valid, and a lot of people don't want the investment of having to wait for the rest of the books and series to come out. Also, series are great if you can pick up a following and kind of get that momentum, but if you don't, the second and third books, sometimes they don't sell as well. So standalone novels can be great when you don't want to encounter that problem. So they're both perfectly valid. There's pros and cons on each side.
Yeah.
It's also really important if you're pitching a series, or if you have something that you
yes.
think could turn into a series, that your first installment, like obviously you want to have hooks, you want to have things, your little breadcrumbs that you're dropping to sort of expand your world or ask questions that you're maybe not going to answer in your first installment. But I think anybody who's read a series of books got into it because that first one was good in and of itself.
Yeah, it needs to be complete.
There's-
Needs to have its own arc that comes to a not an ending necessarily, because there are threads to continue, but make sure it's a whole story. I
think we've all read a book or seen a movie where you know that it was that
it's just a piece of a story.
that a trilogy is planned,
Yeah.
but the first part doesn't necessarily stand as well on its own without the rest of it to come.
Or the middle piece doesn't
Or
work.
the middle beat doesn't
Yeah.
work. Trilogies have their own benefits and their own problems, but I do know one thing we've done a lot of is people will send us the first installment, whether they say that they've got, and a lot of people do this. They write 1 or 2 or 3 of them, and then you pitch the first one. Some people, what we've done a lot of that I was trying to get to was that we'll look at the first book and then we'll say, okay, well, you're telling me that you plan for this to be 2 books or 3 books or 4 books or an ongoing series. What do you have in mind for where this is going? Like, do you know, hey, I want it to be 3 books or 5 books or 10 books? Do you know roughly what you're going to do with a story over that time period of time?
Yeah, we will ask those questions.
Because I'm sure we've all read something too where a book series just goes on and on and on and on and on, and then it gets less satisfying over time because you don't kind of have a clear idea of where you're going with it.
Should they include that in the query letter, or
So
wait
here-
for you to ask?
I was just actually going to say, if you have a series, very important to do not pitch us the entire series. Pitch the first book in itself and state in the query letter this is part of a proposed series. You can also say where you are at that series. So, for example, this is a proposed series, and the second book is finished, and I'm working on the third right now. But only pitch that first book. Don't send us stuff from the whole series. It's just too much to look at at once, and it doesn't do you any favors. So, that's important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, keep those
You
questions.
can mention, like, you could give a plot arc overview of the whole thing just in like a paragraph, just to say, yes, it's a series, here's what the whole story would be, but yeah, don't focus on it.
Yeah, if we're interested in your first book and we know that it's a series, we're going to ask for more information about how
Yeah.
it goes. Unreachable Skies is a great example of this.
Mhm.
We
Fantastic.
loved the first one. before we agreed to take it on, we wanted to see at least a summary of where the rest of it was going to go, so that we could, again, that kind of ties it back to what I was saying earlier, is with the synopsis, is how, like, the whole arc of your story.
Need water, Philip?
No, I'm good.
I could do something.
So, I'm going to ask a question while you're filling the water up here. So, coming back to submissions and queries and all that kind of thing. Now, there's the submission guidelines. The submission guidelines are up on their website. Follow the submission guidelines. But just in general, what are some things that you wish writers or aspiring writers actually knew before they submitted to you? Just either in general about writing or about the submission process, or something that you wish that a writer would know before they get to that point where they start submitting. Because, for example, Justine, you have multiple books published.
Yes.
Like, what are some of the things, for example, for you that you wish you knew before you started doing your submission processes? Or now that you guys have read all these submissions, something that you wish these writers knew before they had submitted? Not that it may have changed their chances or not, but
yeah,
just some things that you wish that they would have known.
There's so many little things, and that's why coming to this kind of event is really like a good idea, because you kind of don't know what you don't know. To be fair,
That's a good thing.
Yeah, just people don't understand the process that goes on our end. Having had a chance to see behind the curtain and experience this, I learned so much about how publishing work and what it feels like for a person to go through the slush pile. And I think that's something that is valuable information for you to learn. So whether you get it from talking to people like us or from volunteering maybe to read for a contest or to read for a publishing house, it's invaluable experience. Just, yeah, knowing what it takes on this side. I think, too, being aware of in the back of your mind the business end of it, so marketing and taking those things into consideration, like how much it costs to print something. There's just so many little details, I guess.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah. I wish they would know that don't listen to people who say submit everything to everyone.
That's a good one.
Don't do that.
I have seen that so many times. You'll see it more commonly for film work. So anybody's writing film scripts or screenplays or whatnot, there is this idea out there that some quote-unquote professionals have stated to the masses that it doesn't matter if they accept your genre, it doesn't matter if they accept the type of book you're doing, submit anyway, you might get a hit, right? There are so many people that tote that. It doesn't matter. Again, mostly for screenwriting, but it's bled into the novel writing and such nowadays.
Try to think of your submission or your manuscript even as something you are trying to sell to a publisher. So if you think of it that way, as like a business, like it's like a job interview or a business proposition, you're trying to get someone to invest in your project. So from that mindset, you have to think about it as a business and think about, what do I need to provide this person to make this an enticing investment for them? I think that will shift your mindset a little bit and help you write the query letter, because you're writing a pitch, like you're explaining your project to someone and trying to entice them as a business and as a product. And I don't think enough writers think that way.
I think it feels, when you mention that, it's like, it feels a lot of them are just like, well, I'm just going to put this, almost like they did their homework, and they're like, I'm going to put this down, and it's going to get marked, and I'm going to give them an evaluation. It's like, sorry.
Yeah.
you need to, you're right, you need to sell it.
Yeah. And take a minute to step outside of your own project and your own viewpoint and try to look at it. How would a publisher see this? How would a reader see this? And getting that different mindset will help you to see if it's ready for where it needs to go.
Also be able to take criticism.
Yes.
I still suck at that. I've written like 11 books and nope, can't do it. So
whereas I've always been the reverse. I personally myself, for my work on theater and stage, I've always had a harder time taking positive criticism than I have negative criticism.
Yes.
The thing is, you should only take positive.
You should only take creative as well.
Well, creative, yeah.
There are quote unquote haters in every field.
This is very good advice for anybody who is listening to the if someone has read your book and you're listening to criticism or comments or suggestions for improvement, any of that stuff, take it all in with a grain of salt, compile it all and see what jives with you. And be willing to be open-minded, be willing to listen to that, but don't just take it and think that that's the gospel truth, because everybody has their own perspective, everybody has their own opinions and the way that they would like things to be, and if you take every suggestion, you're losing your own voice and you're losing your own original concept that you've come up with. You're letting other people influence it. So best thing to do is just take advice and criticism from multiple sources and compare to see where those things align, not just with each other but also with your own beliefs in the work.
That's one of the great details of beta readers as well.
Yes,
you take
that's how you review beta reader feedback.
If you have like two people saying, "Oh, I don't like this character," you have one person saying, "I think your pacing is a little slow," but you have 8 people saying, "I know you described the castle, but I can't picture it." And 8 people all say that. In my opinion, that's the thing you should be looking at.
Definitely. Yeah, so you only change the thing. We tell our authors every time we give them feedback, whether from us or from beta readers, only change the things that you agree with, because you have to be happy with that final product.
Yeah, and not every character, and not every reader is going to like every character either. So there'll be a lot of quips and nitpicks and everything about that.
Yeah. And that's the danger of writers' critique groups too, is that sometimes you feel pressured to change things, or sometimes you do change things because you're trying to please that group, and you end up losing that voice or that core element that made the story yours.
Remember the reason you wrote it.
Yeah, the group's not writing the book, you're writing the book. So.
Next.
All right, so what's the most common mistake that you see new writers making? Because you guys read so many submissions between you. What are some of the most common mistakes?
Is this editing aside?
Editing
could be the most common mistake.
Could be the most common thing you see. But
is that your answer?
Because the thing is sometimes when it's submitted, because it's not like the polished copy, it's just like grammar, the way sentence structures are, commas, like how nitpicky do you want me to get on this?
Well, blanket statement not following the guidelines is the biggest mistake an author can make.
Yes.
No, not all.
But that aside,
not that one.
But
written
that
work
aside,
when the written work comes
yes.
in.
No, the
if
most
they've succeeded on the guidelines.
Yeah,
the
sure.
written work comes in.
The most common mistake people mistake is, I don't know, maybe they don't understand what escapism means, but not submitting the correct genre is the number one most common mistake that we get, which is kind of silly because it's so laid out for you. Like we've said, we want this, 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 this. We don't want this, 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 this. People still try anyway. That's just a no-no. So that would be the most common mistake.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Besides, of course, editing, as was previously said. No, I'm joking. All right. So
we made a whole video, though, on the 5 most common mistakes
Yes, we did.
people make when submitting, and they're all listed.
Formatting. Oh, geez, that's a common mistake. Just put it in the right file, in the right size, and don't have your margins, like, too big or too small, and don't put, like, 6 or 7 blank pages before your chapter starts.
You want to make it easy and accessible for us to read. Just make it simple. Don't try too hard. Make it look fancy or whatever. Just
did you put it through spell checker? Yes. Did you put it through like the grammar check? Yes. Okay, I get there's gonna be some mistakes, but at least you did 2 things that makes it a little bit better.
To be clear, we don't have like specific like paging and font size and margin size guidelines. That's not what we're talking about. Sabrina's talking about submissions that we've seen where it looks like a Word document went through a blender and then came out on the other side of
6 blank pages! Come on! That's not needed. We could do that.
Making it easy for us to access and read through what you've submitted is the best way to get me interested.
Now,
apart from having something worth reading to begin with.
Do you suggest that they keep it, for example, fairly standard? Like, for example, don't change your font, don't change your color, try to keep your sizing
What's
around
the most common right now? Times New
it's
Roman?
Arial
12
or
font?
Times New Roman?
Calibri or
Calibri
Times
now?
New Roman are both fine. Anything that's a really legible font, Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, just Garamond, it's fine.
It's what, size 12 font?
Yeah, anywhere between 11 to 13 font. It doesn't. Again, we're not particular. We just want to be able to read it, and we want that experience to be smooth and easy. So don't overcomplicate it.
Full disclosure: if that's a problem, when I open up your file, I'm just gonna highlight all of it and then change it to the font and size I want to read it.
And that's why we
So
asked
don't-
for a Word document and not a PDF.
Oh, that's a common mistake.
PDF.
Please put your chapters and all your other things as separate files. Don't put them in the body of the email you sent them in.
Oh yeah, it's
Yes.
one attachment should have 3 chapters altogether. Another attachment
Yes.
should be your synopsis. Your query letter goes in the bottom of the email.
leave-
I hate copying and pasting chapters
leave-
out of an email.
Leave
Yeah.
the email for the email parts. Put your synopsis, your whatever other stuff you're sending in, separate attachments. And if you're gonna do 3 chapters, don't send me a file for chapter 1, a file for chapter 2,
that's
a file
annoying.
for chapter 3, all in one document. It's more than fine. And
Yeah.
It makes it much easier for me to read if I need to go back and forth to look at something. So much easier than having 5 different files open.
Yeah,
I think that also falls under the if you can't be bothered to read it, I can't be bothered to read it.
yeah. Mine is the make sure that it's in the right format. Like, don't send it as a PDF.
That's
yeah.
a personal thing for me. I just hate reading out of PDFs.
I,
That might just be a me thing, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure what submission says about that.
it says
so.
.doc or .docx. Those are
Okay.
2 options.
And from my experience, from submissions and everything too, just for anybody else listening or reading, I know that there is advice out there to send all documentation in a PDF locked format. That way that the publishers can't take your idea and steal it and write it. What is your comment to that advice?
Shove it.
it makes it more complicated to get at your information if you're leaving it in locked formats, and if the concern is about having your work or your ideas stolen. The best thing you could probably do in that case would be to do some research about who you're submitting to beforehand. Look at their website, look at their other social media.
Make sure they're legit.
Take 5 minutes and Google their name, or go check out some of the websites out there that try to aggregate information about publishers for you. If odds are, if somebody is running a scam, that
Someone knows about it.
Somebody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
You could.
You just type in like Mirror World Publishing scam ? And Google will tell you. We're not.
In being a person submitting something, you have to have a certain baseline amount of trust that what you send into a publisher is not just going to get stolen and then rewritten by one of their authors and sold and make big money.
It's
from
so
that,
unlikely, but yeah, you're right. You should still be cautious.
I have to assume that this has happened somewhere to someone, or otherwise there wouldn't be a reason for this to be such a widespread thing that people seem to think.
Could be a myth.
But maybe it's just a myth and it's never happened to anybody. I don't know. But when it comes down to it, for me, it's just a personal preference. I prefer to read things in Word because I can set up the screen to read it more easily.
Yeah,
I just
do your research.
I don't like PDFs personally.
Do your research, but once you've done your research and you know this is a company you want to work with, then you're going to have a little bit of trust, because you're going to have to form a relationship with that company.
Yeah. Coming from a creative standpoint from myself, as well as doing creative works myself, I mean, people have told me their ideas before, asking for advice on how to write characters or how to write scenes or how to write whatever, and I'll provide it to them. I mean, absolutely no offense to anybody who's ever asked me these questions before, but I have so many ideas in my own head, I'm not going to steal yours.
Yeah.
I have so many other things I can write, I'm not going to take yours.
Something I learned from the video game industry, ideas are easy. Ideas are a dime a dozen.
Execution's hard.
It's the work and putting in the work to make that idea a reality, to make it a thing. That's the hard part, and nobody can easily steal that from you. We're not going to duplicate that. If I were to read a concept, somebody said, my story is about bunnies in space or something. If I take that idea and write a story about bunnies in space, I'm not stealing really anything from you unless you have a published book that is about bunnies in space, and then I'm really only kind of making my own version of it. You're never gonna get that same story, because there's tons of different vampire falls in love with chosen one girl stories, and they're not the same. So I don't know.
It's the difference between plagiarism and general idea.
Yeah, you're not your actual sample chapters are not really of use to anybody. Like 3 chapters, what's that gonna do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. Seems silly.
Yeah, ideas are easy, work is hard. And there's another quote too, everybody has a book inside them.
Yes.
It's just not everybody has the will to write it.
Yeah.
I realize that my answers seem very harsh, but I have no time or patience for that kind of nonsense, and honestly, if you're that worried, don't send it.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Like, it's particularly for me. It's kind of like if you're that worried, then maybe you
not-
should
you're
go
not-
self-publish because
Maybe you're not ready to have a relationship with a publishing house.
With
that,
any
that might
publishing
be it.
house.
Maybe traditional publishing is not the best avenue for you at that
Yes.
point.
And that
you
comes
have
into
to
research.
you have
That-
to
yeah.
you have to have a certain you have to be able to expect a certain degree of professionalism when you're dealing with a company.
Think about it this way: if you invented like a new product, for example, and you wanted to partner with a company to produce that product for you, you're going to have to give them that idea to let them know what the product is. You're still pitching that idea, so that level of risk is still there. It's the same thing.
Honestly, from a side point, I think that actually has a much more chance of being stolen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes, it does.
So that requires more protection.
Yes.
But okay, so we have a message here from Sharon. She says, "Great advice all around. Wishing you guys all the best with your submissions this year."
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
I look forward to seeing all your lovely posts all the time on Facebook. with all the hashtags.
I'm excited because I know Sharon soon. She's working on editing the next book, third book
Third.
I saw that.
in the Last Timekeepers series. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Oh, we have another comment here from Linda. Thank you for providing guidance and answering questions about your submission process. Also for providing feedback for writers so they can improve. I can't think of another publisher who does this.
We get that a lot.
So, are you saying this is something you want done more often?
Yeah, we'll be
Maybe we
keeping
should
this,
do we can do Q&As, but other topics maybe.
Just throw a topic up there and just have a round table sitting around.
Sure,
just chatting.
why not?
Set something up for
But
once a month.
it's something I have noticed that we are very unique for offering feedback, for being approachable, and that's something we're able to do because of our size. And it might come a day that we do get too big, and we do have to maybe use a bit
Slim it
more,
down.
a bit more form letters or things like that. And that would be sad, honestly, because it's something that we really enjoy doing. As a writer, I know what it's like to submit your work to someone else, and I know what it's that you've put your heart and soul into writing and creating that project. And I think it's only respecting that process that we want to give you feedback and at least let you know where you're at. So even if or why we're not accepting something from you, because you don't get that anywhere else. And you give it to a friend and they're like, "Oh, it's good." Well, is it good? Where is it at? Is it actually like, is it ready to be published? And you need that. So it's something that we're happy to be able to provide.
It's also something when we did shows, because again, we'll still do shows once everything's calmed down, but when we used to do shows, people would come up, and when they found out that we're willing to answer questions, you can see that they're like, "Oh, okay, I can ask them questions," and we'll take them off to the side and answer all their questions and get engaged with them. But that's also a potential buyer, a potential writer, and a potential author you're talking to, and also someone who's going to talk to other people for you.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, "Oh man, you should check
networking.
out... it's networking. You should check out the person." It's like if you go to a restaurant and you really liked it, you're going to tell your friend, and they're going to try, and they're going to tell their friends. It's the same thing for this. And people really like being engaged.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's something that I wish I had as an author when I was first submitting to places and first learning about the publishing industry. If I would have gotten a personal response from anybody, I would have been over the moon. So it's something that I'm happy to provide to people.
I don't write, but I can totally understand that, because when I submit for jobs, I love it even if I get a rejection notice for a job saying, "Sorry, we're not what you're looking for." I'm like, they responded to me. I don't care if it's form letter.
You're just not lost.
It's the
in
greatest
ether.
feeling.
Yeah.
And it also lets me know that they have received it.
That's another thing too. We have to be very careful giving our letters and responses to people, because you don't want to crush that person's dreams in any way. And please, if we ever give you a rejection letter or a response letter that is not what you were looking for, don't take it as a criticism. Don't take it as us saying that you are terrible at writing, for example. We do our best to frame things in not just a positive way, but in a constructive way, trying to say, here's where you're at, here's what you can do to get better. So we're not like crapping on your story. We would never do that.
And this
Yes.
And one thing to remember too, and I think this ends up going at it in just about every response that we send to somebody for rejecting them, is publishing is a subjective business.
Yes.
just because it's not something that we're interested in, or it's not something that we're interested in at this time,
Yes.
or maybe your story just didn't resonate with the people who ended up reading the sample chapters, it doesn't mean that what you've written is not valid. It doesn't mean that what you've written is not good. It doesn't mean that what you've written couldn't go on to sell a million billion copies someday.
It's just not the right fit for us at this time.
I hear that all the time. People have written a book, they submit it, denied, submit, denied, submit, denied.
Yeah.
3 years later, submit, boom.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Sometimes it's just not the right time, or not the right place, or not the right people that you're working with. Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
And that being said, we are a small publishing house, and we can only publish 6 books maximum each year. So we have a number of authors too that have sequels coming out, and those count. They get counted into those 6 books. So we can only take maybe 2 or so books each year, 2 to 3 outside authors, and each one that we do it's a risk for us, and it's something that we have to really believe in and invest in. So it's just the percentage chance with hundreds and hundreds of submissions coming in. We're only going to pick 1 or 2. We have to take the ones that really speak to us or really resonate with us, and we can't take as many as we would like. So it just might be, as I said, not the right time. Maybe we have too many YA books right now, so that's not what we're looking for.
So to one of our questions then, the answer to almost directly to that is, what advice can each of you give for writers to improve their chances of getting published? What's something they can do to improve their chances to get published?
Well, we already talked about the personalized query letter.
Mm-hmm.
I think in your query letter, making it very clear that you know who we are, and that you're willing to look into the company and understand what we're about, and to really kind of get that feel. Our mission statement's really important to us. So if you kind of state, my book would fit with Mirror World because something along those lines, then we kind of go, oh, okay, it's a this. We were looking for that. That really helps. And go back to following the guidelines, but that's not going to necessarily make your book stand out, but it helps me so much in the submission process if in the first paragraph or the middle paragraph of your query letter it states very clearly, my book, this title, is this many words long in this genre for this audience, and it's all just stated in one sentence. That would just be so much easier for me.
What did I mention there? Blank form letter?
Yeah.
You fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that plus the engaging opening we've already talked about it a number of times, that intrigue us with the concept of your world, intrigue us with your opening paragraph or scene, draw us in, make us question why is this happening, what's interesting about this, I want to read more. Anytime I want to read more, that's how you get noticed. Anyone else?
I think you've hit the highlights.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a question that we've sort of been answering since we started talking.
That was a summary of
this answers everything that we've talked about.
Yes.
But
I'd also say that if you do get a rejection and we do give you the critiques or whatever else for it, and it still fits within our genre, it's just kind of like, we want you to look into this and this, maybe do this, or whatever it is, like tidy it up or whatever you need to do to it, and resubmit it.
Yeah. Let me let you in on a little secret. If we say to you on your response letter, if it says to you, we liked it, but this, if you could improve these things, we'd love if you could resubmit. That is the best possible answer you can get from us. That means we legitimately, if you fix these issues that we have with it, we legitimately want to see it again. So that's like the second best thing to, we want to see the whole manuscript right now. So don't think that is thinking of these things as a rejection is kind of the wrong way to think about it, because of our feedback, we're trying to help you improve it. So if we just say your manuscript isn't ready, we would like you to look at these items. That's a good thing.
Excellent. Well, Uncle Jed says, thank you very much for this session. This was great. It was great info, is what he says. And actually, we are getting near the roundup time. Believe it or not, we've been now going for about an hour and a half or so.
Wow.
I knew it would go.
Not including technical difficulties at the beginning.
I'll totally fix your computer later.
Yeah, smoking. Anyway, so For those of you who have been with us this entire time, actually, Mirror World is going to be offering you guys a thank you for attending the event. What you guys can do is you guys can head over to their virtual bookstore and use the promo code, all capitals, thank you. I'll actually put that
all one word.
I'll put that in chat. Oh, that's the wrong mouse. There we go. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, so you have a chance to go to our bookstore, which is at mirrorworldpublishing.com, and search through our books, find one maybe in the genre that you like or the genre that you write in, put in that code when you go to purchase the ebook version of it, and you will get it for free. And the reason we give out free ebooks occasionally, especially as thank yous for engaging with us, is so that you can have a kind of like a free sample, like a taste of what we write and what kind of things that we publish, so that you can basically decide if you like it, because our whole thing is all of our books have something in common, and if you like one of them you might like the rest of them in that same category.
Yeah, that might be a good fit. Plus, it gives you a chance to kind of get a good feel for it. Plus,
yeah,
to see the kind of things
all across the different genres. And
yeah, like Mirror World Publishing is a community, and we want you to come back, and we want you to read, all of the books, all the ones that appeal to you. So,
can I put a question out to the audience?
Ooh.
Question
in
for the
script.
Woo! Would you guys like to see more live streams like this? Either just general round tables, specific topics, anything like that? Because, I mean, it's a thing that I personally have no problem doing. I stream gaming stuff, so to me, doing this is what I enjoy doing for Mirror World. I'll be brutally honest. I enjoy being the table person, the person out there, the person who talks to you.
And since we can't get out there right now, is this something that you would appreciate, that we can find ways to interact with you and answer your questions? Maybe we can bring on other, authors or people to talk to.
Screen to screen, that kind of thing.
I also love encouraging people, so I can even discuss with the business if I can do live streaming for them elsewhere, or without them, to help you guys out and encourage you and be like, I'm here for you. I'll even put little pom-poms on and be like, go team. It's something I love doing. Anytime I go to events, I love encouraging people. It's what I do, and I love seeing authors going out there. And Canada has this, I don't know if it's a stigma or something about fantasy and escapism and stuff, but it's very hard to get into that genre in the publishing world, I find, in Canada. And I want to encourage, I'm encouraging all writers, but especially Canadian writers, because I know it's hard for us to do it and to keep pushing and to keep going and to keep changing it, and go for it. Don't stop writing.
Break the stigma that Canada's only good for literary Canadian fiction
and dry history. Very dry.
And poetry.
And poetry.
Nothing against those genres. They're just not our genre.
It's the glut. It's like how big publishing companies don't want to publish medieval fantasies anymore. There's too much of it. There's a lot in Canada. There's a lot of nonfiction and literary, and there's more to everything than that. I'm pretty sure other countries and other places have the same thing, where it's all one-sided and you're doing the little guy on the side here.
Our arts council doesn't seem to support genre fiction. I think they think of it as too commercial. So the only type of art that really gets supported is literary, poetry, or Indigenous kind of stuff, or local.
Which is good. That's being supported at all.
Yes. However,
there's more to it.
Yeah, there's other
Big
things.
wide world out there.
Yeah, exactly. And Mirror World Publishing is in Canada, and we would appreciate, to be counted, I guess.
And that's the thing too, is a lot of people ask you when you go to shows, are you local? It's like, well, we're from Windsor, but we are local to Canada.
Well, and we are also international. Our books are sold worldwide. You can literally order them from wherever you happen to be, and we accept authors from all over the world. So don't feel
Canadian
bad.
authors.
Yes.
You have American authors.
Yes.
You have British authors.
Yeah. And
we have New Zealand?
We have someone from Australia who's in the anthology.
Yes.
So, whether or not you're from Canada, the States, or over in Britain,
we've received submissions from everywhere.
Many different places.
Yeah, the Maldives, I think.
We've even had people submit that have had it changed into English.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which can happen.
That to be fair, we've had some problems with some people from other places sending in books that have been translated, and sometimes that doesn't always
translate well.
Yeah.
Well, get someone to beta read that first.
Yeah, they need more work, and sometimes that can be a barrier.
Those situations are more complicated too, because not only just because we're a small press, we're not really in a position to be doing translation work or dealing with like international rights and things like that. Like it's there are plenty of companies out there that can have that as a focus. That's just not something that we're really set up to handle.
We do have one French book, however. Beverly Bees, the Brown Burmese has a French version. We are in Canada, so we were testing out that market to see if the French copy would sell. So that is something, if you have children who speak French or are learning French, is something you can pick up.
Excellent. All right, so is there any final statements?
Did the audience respond at all?
Not as of yet.
Fair enough.
If you don't respond right now, the video will be up on YouTube so people can go back and look at it later.
We'll also
and
post
check
it
the
on
comments
Mural
later
stuff.
and see where we go from there.
Yeah.
So.
Final statements from me is if you have any more questions at a later date and that you want more information about any part of the publishing or submission process, or even just tips and tricks about writing, please check out our blog. I have spent the last handful of years writing so many articles on every single topic imaginable to do with writing. There's also a few episodes of Mirror World News that you can check out, but just go to the blog, type in a keyword, so query, for example, and you'll see all the articles come up about that subject, and that resource is there for you, and please make use of it. Do you have any final statements?
Submissions is always my most favorite time of the year because I'm excited to see what you're going to send us. So I'm eager to dive into all of that as soon as we have some time.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to send to us because we are very gentle. And we will give you feedback, which is invaluable. And even if you know, for example, that your book isn't necessarily ready to kind of hit the wide world and go to other publishers, you can still feel safe to send it to us, and we'll give you that feedback. So that's a free service that we offer, whether you think that your book is ready for publication or not.
As long as it's the right genre.
Yes, as long as it's escapism. And that's simply because we are not experts in any other genre. That's the genre that we work in. That's the genre we know. We can't help you with your memoir. We just can't. And I guess the most important thing, and the thing that we're going to end on, is follow the guidelines.
We should have rehearsed this. Follow the guidelines.
I feel like I need a shirt with that written on it. Want to submit? Follow the guidelines.
Follow the guidelines.
And then I realized what I just said. If you want to submit to the publishing company, follow the guidelines.
Go to mirrorworldpublishing.com, click on the submissions tab. All of the information is there for you. And if you have any questions that are not answered on that page, contact us. It's info@mirrorworldpublishing.com with any questions you have, or there's a contact form on our website. It's super simple. We try to make it as easy for you as possible, and we are never going to not answer your questions. So just send them to us.
And Uncle Jed says, thank you, that would be helpful.
Thank you all for attending.
Comment.
To your comment about the other...
Yes,
oh, okay.
So we just want to thank you all for coming out today, or anybody who watches this video in the future. We do this for you, so thank you.
Thank you.
I love doing this. This has like made my day. Coming outside notwithstanding.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming into this live stream. I'm going to attempt to turn it off now.
Just press the stop streaming button.
We will just keep waving until the video cuts out.
Wave us out. Wave us out.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all for showing up.